Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. All you out there in the internet world. Well, here we are to do another chapter. Chapter 2 from my book, The Jester Prince, Adventure in Life, Faith, and Love. Yes, chapter 2. A little bit more on the lore of the world where this takes place in Pontarmaville. It's very similar to Earth that we know. There are, like I say, there's cities, there's republics and all that. And even, believe it or not, there's even Christianity. There is, and not only that, there is also the Bible. It's like I say, a parallel universe where the continents may have shifted a little differently and politically things moved a little differently, but it's the same basic principle. Their Bible is our Bible. Christ came to their world. Christ came to our world. So, but it's fun. It opens up so much more possibilities than having a godless world. So, and other parts of the lore is like, say, people are people. So, they have to deal with situations that come up, hard and easy. Things happen that they don't always like, but got to keep going, despite how things turn out, whether you like it or not. All right, here we go. Chapter 2, Growing Up. Time passes. 7 years since the state funeral for Queen Sarah. 7 years since the death of King Robert. It has also been 7 years since the beginning of the apprenticeship of Joseph under Jester Bartholomew. And 7 years since the curse and prophecy. The northern kingdom had secured its border with the south, with fences, heavy guards, and patrols. No one gets in without notice or free reign of destination from the sorceress's domain. King William and Queen Anna are still in very good health and are proud to see their daughter Rose is growing up well. The children of the court are all taught together in ways of classical education on a variety of subjects, from math and religion to theater and literature. In the southern kingdom, the sorceress consolidates her authority over the people with fear and threats. She also spends a lot of time looking through the courtyard window at the statue that seems to defy her attempts to get near or touch. On occasion, she makes even quick attempts for the sword, sometimes using spells, sometimes using quick runs. All attempts lead to nothing but humiliation or death of a royal proxy involved with the attempt. Joseph is now 14. Although he is under the apprenticeship of Bartholomew, he is required to take classes with the other children, including with the now 13-year-old Rose, the princess. She and many of the other girls love to tease him to no end. In the free time between classes, and they do, I've seen it. Doing things to him, from tying him up in a corner of the courtyard to pushing him in mud. The princess and her friends always laugh at his expense. The taunting does get to him quite a bit, sometimes to the point of tears. He tries to keep his cool. A couple times he lost his cool and lashed out at the girls. He was put over Bartholomew's knee and spanked. He even got a good bit of discipline from the queen once for losing his cool over something Rose had done during an event one day. Getting a spanking lecture from the queen made him forever hesitant about popping off in public ever again. Although she was like his aunt, the incident was over a year ago. He still thought about it over and over. Joseph was also at the beginnings of puberty, and Bartholomew knew it. He also had Joseph trained in tactics and weapons use, covert operations, surveillance, and problem solving. He also added abstinence and theology training to Joseph's study to wear him out by the end of the day's work. All this while training Joseph to be a good jester and a gentleman. During this time period in one of the classes, Joseph asked this: asked this question. Master Bartholomew, I heard I've heard from other people that it is wrong to do some of the things that jesters do. Someone said it's in the Bible that those who dress the gender of an like another gender are to be shunned. How do you answer this? Jester Bartholomew replied, Ah, you are referring to Deuteronomy 22, verse 5. A woman shall not wear articles proper to a man, nor a man shall nor a man put on a woman's dress. Those who do such things are abomination to the Lord. That sounds like what I heard, stated Joseph. The old jester began to explain. It's a matter of choice that makes it right or wrong. We are servants, and we have to do as we are told. Some people choose a way of life that creates confusion and disorder because it feels good to them. For example, the Southern Kingdom, just before it fell, people were doing all sorts of things and that were many abominable practice. Men with men, women with women, plus many other things that would warp your mind. They developed a feel-good society. However, this led to a weakening of the culture that in the long term led to their destruction. They couldn't see evil walking in and killing them. The feel-good and do-it attitude blinds people to what is good around them. Now, a servant, especially ones like us that serve nobles, must honor the wishes of our masters. This is also in the Bible. Read the Gospels and you'll see Matthew, the book of Matthew. Life is more than what you eat. The body is more than clothes. You cannot add a moment to your life by worrying. The book of John. Love one another, serve one another, forgive one another. I believe this is what it's about. Doing what is asked of you that makes you is what makes you a good person. As long as it does not harm the faith or another person. Christ, for example, in the agony in the garden, did not want to go through what was coming, but he did go through it. In his words, not my will, Father, but yours be done. This is what being a jester is about, not our wills, but theirs. This is why I say in Our Father before every show and performance. When I'm asked to put on a dress for a show, personally I hate it, and you will too when you find out what it entails. But I do it for my masters because it is part of the job. It's not about what other people think. It's about who we are and we can say for ourselves and what we say for ourselves. Personally, I believe that God gave us a spirit of humor to lift people, lifting their souls with laughter and some form of absurdity. This, I believe, is what led to jesters and those who entertain people. Believe me when I tell you that the rich and powerful, the famous, are some of the saddest souls in desperate need of a laugh. There are, of course, many kinds of jesters because people have different tastes in humor. Some specialize in jokes and are called jokers. Some do nothing but riddles and limericks, called the riddlers. And there's jugglers. Some do magic tricks and so forth. Some do physical comedy, like take desserts to the face or pratfalls into things or slapstick moves and looks. This is what our kind of jester does in this last description I give you. Just stated Bartholomew. Do you understand, Joseph? Our type of jester and what our jester described here? Joseph could only respond, yes, I think so. So more time passes. Now Bartholomew is getting older and wants to retire, but he does not want the art loss. He also gives the king counsel and advice, reporting what is going on in the kingdom. He also relates what the queen and the ladies of the court are up to and in need of. to the king. In short, he is also the head of the police of the kingdom and the royal counselor. Being jester in the kingdom was a lot of work. He always gave thanks to God for all that he had, for the blessings, for the challenges, and so forth. For him, faith was the key to his success. He was proud to share this fact with all who he knew. And at this time, the king summoned him and Joseph to the main courtroom. The old jester and his young apprentice stepped before the king and queen and the princess. The king speaks. Bartholomew, my friend, how are you today? Good, sire. How may I be of service to you? He responded. My daughter's birthday is coming up in a little while. We were wondering what to expect. In particular, is Joseph ready to perform for us? A little taken back, yet almost expecting this, Bartholomew responded, I believe something can be arranged. I believe he is almost ready. Looking to the queen, do you have something in mind, my lady? Yes, we do, she responded. We, Bartholomew inquired. The princess and myself would like you to do something fun on her birthday. Something good and messy, as she puts it. Looking admirably at her daughter and then back to Bartholomew. The jester nodded and looked at Joseph, who was a little shocked by what was just said. Are you ready, Joseph, to perform for the house? Nervously, he answered, Yes. The age of the two youngsters was actually about 18 months apart. So for a short while, Joseph was a whole 2 years older than Rose. He loved this time on the calendar when they were 2 years apart. It was the only thing he'd love to tease Rose about. Now, as her birthday was coming quick, he had been asked for the first time to perform in a manner of Bartholomew's work. He suddenly was very nervous. In fact, it was so nervous, it was obvious to Bartholomew pulled him to the side and talked to him. Don't worry, Joseph. Everything will be good. I remember my first performance. Do you know that I was just as nervous at my first performance. Sir, did you feel like you were going to be sick and pass out? Like a weight was crushing your mind and chest? Yes, Joseph, and more. Yet I got through it, and so will you. I hope so, sir. Police training, observing, and listening are so much easier, as you have no real audience. When you have me in a shadow or in a corner listening to people, then reporting what is said to you, it's just so much easier. I know, Joseph. Now you have to work in the public side of the arts that we do. This is where our work starts to pay off. It is in the public fair, as it were. We jesters are at our best. When you play the fool, you are the only sober person in the room. There is a reward that I cannot describe in words. But you'll understand when it is done. Plus, you'll have God on your side. If you have that trust, you can get through anything. Joseph tried to understand what his instructor was telling him. He was feeling better, yet he was still very shaky. Bartholomew gave Joseph a special undergarment to wear during the party that wound up the loins. It felt tight, but it seemed to work. To test Joseph, Bartholomew took Joseph to the summer house in the foothills. Here, Joseph endured a hard week of messy work, testing out different costumes and methods of physical entertainment. It was taxing work. He had never had so many baths or been so messy so many times. He also had his first real shower, which was a kettle with holes that water was poured into when a person stood below. It was a surprisingly fast way of cleaning up. Joseph liked it. It was at this time Joseph met the lady of the house, who identified herself as an aunt, though she was actually his mother, Sarah. She had changed in appearance so much that he did not recognize her. Yet he sensed something familiar about her, but this he kept to himself. Now arriving back at the capital, Bartholomew and Joseph were coming into the market area, where they met a few of the royal guards. With them, Joseph noticed the queen and the young princess looking at different stalls and vendors in the square. "It's shopping day, Joseph," Bartholomew said from close behind. "Sir?" he inquired of his teacher. "It is where the queen and the princess come out of the castle and buy things for birthdays and special occasions." Surveying the scene, Bartholomew noticed that Princess Rose was watching a candy maker pull taffy. He noticed his young apprentice watching her. "Why don't you go talk to her, Joe? You have the day off, and her friends aren't here to help harass you." "Yes, sir," was his response. Joseph walked up next to Rose and quietly and meekly, like he was expecting to be ambushed, watched the candy maker for a few minutes at her right side. She suddenly realized a presence of someone next to her and turned with a start to see who it was. "Joseph," she exclaimed. "Rose," he responded. "Don't sneak up on people like that. You scared me." "Sorry, I thought you saw me coming." "Well, now that you're here, what are you doing in the market, Joseph?" "I just got back from the summer home and training for your birthday party performance. It was really intense. I can handle whatever you throw at me, I think." "Well, I'm glad you think you're ready for me," Rose replied. They were getting bored watching the candy maker, and both at the same time said to each other, "Want to do something different?" The candy maker had just finished and gave them each a small sample of his creation before they left his shop booth. They walked along together to different merchants and entertainers in the square, looking at different sights and attractions. They talked about their different interests, favorite classes in school and such. It was just after midday. The air was warm as they walked along. They came up to the Queen, Anna, and Bartholomew, who were talking about something, but quickly went silent as the youngsters approached. Queen Anna was first to speak. "What have you two been doing?" she inquired. "Just looking at things around the market, Mother," came Rose's response. "We also had different free samples from the different merchants and shops," added Joseph. "Trying new things is good," Joseph affirmed Bartholomew. Joseph nodded. "Joseph, would you escort Rose back to the castle?" the Queen asked. He looked at Rose, then back to the Queen and answered, "Yes, Your Majesty." "The Jester and I have some things to discuss. Off you go and stay clean." So the youngsters headed back to the castle. Now the road to the castle went through a flat vineyard area. Then an orchard of a variety of fruit trees lined the lower part of the hill that the castle was actually built on. Here, in the times between bud and harvest, kids from the village would play and make small gangs that would last only a summer. As Joseph and Rose were walking the dirt road, a small group stepped out from behind one of the last of the vineyard lines. "Well, what have we here?" said the apparent leader, a young teenager about the age of Joseph and Rose. "It looks like a couple of royal brats," seconded another. Rose spoke up. "I am Princess Rose, and my mother is the Queen." "And I am the apprentice of Jester Bartholomew," spoke Joseph. Later, the group stepped forward. "Right, sure you are. And I'm the king of the vineyard," with a sarcastic tone. "We are who we say we are," replied Joseph. "Let us pass," added Rose. "Not until you pay a toll," rang in one of the other kids in the group. "Toll? There are no tolls on this road," said Joseph. "And I'm not paying you one either," replied Rose. "Oh, yeah? Then you have to get past me," said the leader of the group, stepping up close to Joseph, looking as though looking as tough as he could. Joseph tried to step away from this bully, but it was no use. The kid was determined to do something. Joseph softly said, "You should back off, friend, or else." "Or else what?" was the bully's reply. "You'll be sorry," was Joseph's answer. The bully gave Joseph a hard shove into a soft mud hole at the end of one of the vineyard lines. Then he gave a spit to the face. Rose, in slight shock of what just occurred, yelled at the bully, "You brute!" She stepped in front of this antagonist, but he gave her a quick shove too. She gave a quick yell as she landed on Joseph in the mud. Another of the kids in the group threw a mud pie that exploded over both of them. Joseph scooted from under Rose, wiped his face, and addressed the leader bully. "Now you have gone too far," he stated with a strange calm in his voice. Turning to Rose, he quietly said, "Stay still, stay calm." She nodded, though she wanted to get up and run. She stayed and watched an impressive display unfold before her eyes. The bully was rushing up on Joseph, who looked like he was about to get pummeled down. Then suddenly stepped to the side and with a quick motion flipped the bully onto his back. The second in the group tried to hit Joseph with a quick right jab, but Joseph caught the hand and twisted it and flung it behind the second kid into the first. The third threw a mud ball. Joseph caught it and flung it back, straight back at its center, hitting him in the middle of the head, knocking him to the ground. The lead bully got back to his feet and again tried to rush Joseph. This time, Joseph hit him with a strange move that knocked the air out of his lungs. The bully went down again, in agony this time. Joseph then again turned and looked at the others watching. The second stated with fear in his voice, "Let's get out of here!" The kids scattered, leaving only the lead bully behind with Joseph and Rose. The second lingered to see what would happen from a distance. Joseph then helped Rose out of the mud pit, who was actually in awe of what she had just witnessed, and forgot for a moment she was covered with mud. Both Joseph and Rose stepped up to the now shaken bully. "I believe you owe the lady an apology," said Joseph. The bully on his knees looked up in agony at Rose, who now looked somewhat more powerful to him, and said, "I'm sorry." "That's more like it. And now, what is your name? Should we meet again, we have an understanding." Jim Van Bruin. That's my brother over there, Adam. Our parents are metalsmiths." Joseph looked up at the other kid at a distance, then back at the one in front of him. "Go, Smith boys." So they left. From that time on, the two boys were known as the Smith boys. And with that, the former bully ran away with his friends and his brother. Joseph looked at Rose. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" No, she replied. "Are you okay, Joseph?" Yes, a little shaken, perhaps, but okay." Rose looked at herself. "Oh, my mom is going to kill me. She told me to keep clean. Look at me and you. We're a mess." "Don't worry, I have an idea, Princess," Joseph reassured. The two walked the road into the orchard, where a short distance in, there was a small, cold stream, but had a good quality flow and was clear water. Joseph then turned to the princess and smiled. "We can get clean here. I know ways of cleaning our clothes before anyone knows what happened." Rose agreed. So the two youngsters undressed down to their undergarments, not wanting to cause a scandal should anyone come by. Joseph then showed the young lady how to clean her clothes using the moving water, with some flat stones and sticks. As they did their task and were hanging their things up to dry on a branch in a tree in the sun, she decided to ask how he knew how to do these things. He then explained how, and from the years when he was teased, what he had learned in his training. She then did something he thought she'd never do as a young person. She apologized to him. I'm sorry for treating you that way. Phones. Let's try that again. I'm sorry for treating you that way. It's okay, I forgive you. Then after a pause, by the way, call me Joe. Those who are close to me do. She smiled at him. I like that. Joe, it's nice. Joseph then got up and checked how the clothes were doing. They're about dry. He pointed it out and decided to get dressed. On doing so, they weren't quite paying attention. Now, by strange coincidence, the clothes were the same fabric and color, only the cuts and patterns were different. Rose put on his outer shirt, and he had her shirt on, but realized it wasn't right. Both looked at each other and laughed at the same time. That could have been embarrassing, Joseph sighed after a laugh. Yes, it could. It would have been a good one, she chuckled. So they proceeded to the castle, and upon entering, went to their usual places. Princess Rose went to her rooms and got a change of clothes, as was custom before dinner. She thought about the day that she had had with the young jester, then went about her business preparing for the party to come with her mother and the maids of the court. She told the story to her mother, the queen, of the day she had had with Joseph and how Joseph had defended her. Joseph went to his room with Bartholomew. The jester was waiting. Joseph also changed his clothes for the evening. He also told Bartholomew about the day with the princess. Bartholomew nodded and laughed a little about what had happened. So the royal house prepared for the coming day. The princess's birthday had arrived. The kingdom was a buzz of activity. Joseph and Bartholomew reviewed their acts with some dry practices. Bartholomew also reviewed the guest list with the guards and attendants and gave instruction on who was to stand where and what was expected of them. He was finishing up with the instruction of the guards when one of the maids came from the queen with a rolled piece of paper. Dismissing the group from the room, he turned to Joseph. What is it? Joseph asked. It is our script of what we are expected to do today for the show, he replied. Then the jester, with a smirk and a smile on his face. What does it say? Inquired Joseph. Well, my apprentice, it states my usual tasks of getting pies to the face and my usual costume requirements. For you, it asks for you to wear a basic outfit that you are to be put in a dress by the princess, then pied by her and her friends. Then you are to pie her a couple of times. That's inventive and different, stated the jester. Joseph immediately thought of what had happened the previous day and how they briefly worn each other's clothes. He chuckled to himself. And so it happened. Jester Bartholomew did his usual routine for the queen and her invited guests and the king. Joseph was really nervous and was as he was called forward to the princess. She held up a pre-selected dress for Joseph to wear. She then put it on him with the help of some of her friends. And once he was in costume, the room broke into laughter. Even the king and Bartholomew laughed at the spectacle. Oh, my lord, stated both at near the same time. Rose and her friends pied the boy most thoroughly. Then she handed Joseph a couple of pies. He put them on a table on a nearby table. Princess rose and whispered something to him. Joseph picked up the first pie and gently shoved it in her face. The room gave a collective gasp as he smushed the pastry in the center of her face. But when she laughed out loud, the room laughed with her. Joseph then smushed her with a second pie. This time with a little more force, but not enough to hurt. The room was in on the joke and laughed with them. and as the pie exploded on her. As they were finishing the act, Princess Rose stated out loud, "I can't let him have all the fun, you know." Then she gave a quick turn and stole a kiss from Joseph's cheek. Jester, Bartholomew, and Joseph took their seats next to the thrones as the next set of performers came into the room. Up next were a set of acrobats, followed by some magicians. The illusions of the magicians was very impressive to all in the room. Princess Rose liked it, so much so that she leaned forward and asked her father, "That is neat. Can we get some of them for every birthday?" He nodded to her, "Yes." Then once all the shows were done, the dancing began. Joseph was nervous as Rose had to dance with him. Had to dance, yes. Pardon that, man. Joseph was nervous as Rose had him dance with her, but he did his best. Still a mess and wearing the dress, he did surprisingly well with her. Being that they were still teenager, it was only allowed for a few moments for them to be that close to each other. The queen mentioned to her husband as they were dancing, "Don't they make a nice couple?" Bartholomew gave a nod to Joseph of approval, then seemed to sigh as in relief. And so it was that several customs were established that year. From Joseph wearing a dress, but getting dressed by the princess, getting pied and putting pie in her face, dancing and magicians. All this became a familiar pattern for the next 7 years. The sorceress took note of this too. She had her agents frequently attend formal events. She herself even attended a couple of events, though in disguise, as not to be noticed. She had problems back in the Southern Kingdom and was again getting the itch to grow her territory. Still, she would sneak out and check out future prospects and make plans for conquest. Though she still could not move the sword from its spot, she planned anyway. Time flew by for those in both kingdoms. Rose and Joseph became friends with the Van Brunen boys and started slowly to get close to each other. Joseph and Rose started coming up with harmless pranks to pull on one another, or on others they knew. When Joseph reached his 20th birthday, Bartholomew retired and gave his office to Joseph. The king and queen approved of the move, and all were sad to see the old jester go. King William accepted his friend of moving on, as well as the choice of Joseph to succeed him in his post. In a small ceremony, all changed in Joseph's life. Bartholomew then left the kingdom. Still, only King William and Queen Anna knew the truth and status of who Joseph was, a hidden prince, a Jester Prince. It was also about this time, Joseph became aware of the prophecy in the Southern Kingdom. He heard it through a report that came in from some of the escaped folk from the Southern Kingdom, of freeing the kingdom by an heir to the throne. What had happened to the sword of power? He pondered the meaning of what all this was about. He began to question himself if he was the one to defeat the power of the sorceress. But he wasn't sure. He wasn't sure if he was still royalty or not. His memory began to tick, but he needed answers. He held faith in greater things, that all would be revealed at the proper time. He was also falling truly in love with Rose, but he had never admitted it to her. So ends Chapter 2. Well, thank you for joining me in the read here. Yep, this is my new purple outfit here. For those curious. Magic. Well, thank you for watching. I'll try linking the previous video to this one. Hopefully there'll be a mark in one of the corners. Again, thank you again. Please give my book a buy. Available at Amazon or at norrisbookstore.com.